Hey folks, Mr. Justin here with Secret Weapon Miniatures, and even in the midst of the studio remodel going on behind me, I am here today with the Tablescapes Realms product, and we are going to look at how to paint some of that. In this case, you can see the samples I put together using the tan paint set that we were offering during the campaign, and that's what we're going to recreate. This time I'm doing something a little, well, pretty unusual for me, and that's starting with brushes instead of an airbrush. I know most of the time I use an airbrush, and of course people always say, oh, Justin, what about those of us without an airbrush? First, still go get an airbrush. It's just do it. But otherwise, this time we're starting with a traditional brush. In this case, I have one of the floor tiles. I have not primed it or anything else. Remember that if you're going to prime this, it is a PVC, which means that you're going to need to use an airbrush primer or a PVC-friendly primer. But in this case, just not. You absolutely do not have to prime it. So I'm actually, you can see, taking the basic dirt that comes in that kit, and I'm just putting on a layer right on the base. Does not need to be a particularly even base coat either. I'm coming back with other colors. I'm actually going to do a bit of wet blending here. You'll see that's nice and easy to get a good effect on the base in terms of colors and everything else, but also an easy way to create some texture here in a minute when we start removing some of that paint, which is also a lot of fun. One of these techniques that makes some people pretty uncomfortable since we start effectively finger painting in a minute. But lots of fun, something I enjoy. So I've done my basic dirt. So I have the purple and green and red, which were the colors that I used to add some depth to that original set that we painted for the Kickstarter campaign. So I'm going to mix these up really well. This brush, I haven't cleaned it or anything. It's still got the same brown color on there. Of course, on the samples, I had airbrushed my purple down here into the recesses. And where else am I going to want some of that purple right now? Let's get a little bit more on this rock over here. The green, a bit on the rocks. There we go. Boop. Clean that off. And I'm going to hold it on the red. So I'm just going to take my brush, kind of stipple this all around. A little mossy color now on the rock. Like I said, we're going to take some of that out. Once I've got that, kind of dry my brush a little bit on my arm towel here, get some of that paint off. And then stipple in that purple, bring that out to some of these recesses, onto the rocks there, the gravel portions, to help darken those sections for me. Add a bit more definition later. Alright, still just wiping off the brush, not rinsing it yet. And now the fun part. I can come in either with this brush, still mostly dry, and start stippling off some sections, or at least to create some texture. I can even do it with my dry brush, but one of the things that I really enjoy doing is coming in with my finger and giving it a little wipe. And you'll see right away, because I'm removing paint down to that gray, I'll get a little bit of a texture and highlighted section. So I'm just going to wipe, wipe, wipe. You can use something like a tissue paper, you know, facial tissue, or heck, your sock. But I find it tends to take off too much paint. There's a lot less control. Finger painting is a skill you'll find comes back to you very quickly. So there we go. I can even just tappity tap, tap, tap to create some more texture here. See how I feel about that combination. It's already drying for me too, which is nice. I tend to forget how much longer it takes for things to dry when you're brush painting. So I don't do it very often anymore. See? There we go. A little bit of texture. Got our basic colors down very, very quickly. But I still want a bit more, so I'm going to come in with, where do I see that? A bit more green in here. Over here, just to add a little more zazz. There we go. coming in here towards the recesses. That way I'll have that somewhat mossy color when I come back around at the end. And now, of course, the very exciting part where we watch this paint dry. In which case, I'll be right back. Now that the base colors are mostly dry, certainly dry enough for me to continue with the dry brushing at this stage, that's what we're going to do. I have the two lighter colors here, which are Brown Sand and Olive Skin Highlight, and I'm actually going to start with the lighter of those two. And do some dry brushing. Get the brush, get some of that paint off of there. And I'm going to find a section a little out of the way just to make sure that the brush doesn't have too much paint on it, and it does. But that's all right. We can go back to finger painting to take some of it off if we need to. You know, there are still some damp sections, not really wet, so I'm watching out for those. I will actually use them to blend in a bit here, but for the moment I don't want to get those colors on the brush. Now, while I had to pause to let this dry, if you're painting a bunch of these, of course, for your table or your club, well, you won't have to pause. You'll be able to just pick up the next one, do the base coats on that, and work your way back around through the set. All right, now I'm going to take the, what was that again, Brown Sand. Put that over here on my little brush cup, and do the same thing. But this time, I'm keeping a bit more paint on here and coming in around these edges. And we'll blend that in again in a minute, just adding some definition. And you can see still stippling as well. Help create some texture. There we go. See, already coming together for us. Really simple, like I said, even when we're just dry brushing like this, getting this done, it can get done very quickly. You can get your whole set painted very, very quickly. And of course, I'll be back with some videos on how to do it with an airbrush, because I just can't help myself. And one more time, just coming in with that lighter color now and stippling again. I'm going to leave more paint on this time. If I think it's too heavy like that, I can just get in there with my finger. And at this point, the last thing that I would do is take that purple color again, and what I'm going to do is actually just make a small glaze out of it right here on my cutting mat. Load up the water, really thin that out. You can really see the separation there. Nice clear base on this one too, so really make it easy for me to see how it's separating. Okay, and then I'm going to come back through my little recess edges here where I like that purple color to hide. I just kind of glaze it into those corners, into those little recesses, here and there. Doesn't need to be everywhere. If it's a little too thick in a spot, just get some more water. Thin that right out. I can even take some of this color and glaze it right over the top of a few of these spots. There we go. A little bit of glazed purple on here as well. Add that visual interest that I got with the airbrush in the original samples. But here, no problem. Just a thin glaze. Pulled down into some of these recesses. Wiped off of the top with my finger there. Easy peasy. Clean up that mess real quick. Boop. Boom. Done. And with the exception of the bridge, which of course I'll hit with the Secret Weapon wood set here in just a minute, we're good to go. Of course, that needs to dry as well. So let's let that happen. All right, and last but not least, I do have the Secret Weapon wood triad, so my dark wood, handle wood, and weathered wood. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and decide that we're going to start with the handle wood. Once upon a time, we'll say this was a very nice little bridge, even if it's gotten over it since. Let's get a larger brush, a little bit of water, and load this guy up. Yeah, we're going to come back in other videos and actually have some fun with all of these recesses, add some special effects under here so that we can get ice caverns and things like that happening right here through all of the holes we have in a few of these. All right. And now, while that is still wet, I'm going to do a little more wet blending here, this time with the dark wood. And I'm going to thin that a bit. Trying to make sure I can keep this where you see it, of course. Same deal as before. Actually, this time I'll take one of my dry brushes here, and I'm actually going to stipple those colors together right there on the wood. To get the start of that weathered wood look that I'll finish with. But of course, that means the next thing that has to happen is drying. Okay, at this point what I'm going to do is take that dark wood again and do some selective washes with it. So just spots here and there to create some little sections of rotting wood, or at least a good impression of shadow. Give it some depth in here. And you'll notice I'm putting a fair bit of the wash on those spots, and I'm actually going to let that dry slowly because what it will do is give a nice tide pool effect around it as it pools in, as it dries, as it evaporates, and creates a nice realistic look, as you can see, with very little effort. The only thing you have to do is well, wait. So we'll be back again. Okay, so I've had fun watching paint dry again, and now I'm back for the final step. I'm going to take the weathered wood and dry brush it over the top of my bridge there. Yeah, you can see what I mean about the tide pool effects, I hope. Yeah, there you go. I'm sure the photo will capture that, but hopefully you got to see a bit of it now. Let's see. Dry brush, dry brush, dry brush. I made you out of clay. Just kidding. All right. Just like that. Beautiful weathered wood. Now, one thing you can do to come in and help match it to the base as well is take that green that we used on the rocks and do a wash of that over the bridge, help create a bit of color harmony there between pieces. Otherwise, you could also come in with some purple along the edges if you wanted to add a bit of corresponding shadow. But yeah, I mean, this, boom, it goes together quick, it goes together easily, super fast to paint when you're painting your whole set in one go. Certainly faster than watching paint dry on the same piece. But that's it. Any questions on this one, please leave a comment or let me know. It's Justin@secretweaponminiatures.com. And catch us on Facebook. Thanks again for watching, and next time with an airbrush for you.